Okay, this is Module 5, Lesson 12. Okay, first thing we're going to do is we're going to do an area model. And when I measured them, I had a length was equal to 1 3/4 inches, and my height was equal to 3 1/2 inches. So when I draw it, I'm going to give some spatial sense, which means I'm going to have my 1 here, so it's a larger number, and my 3/4 will be here, which is a little bit smaller. Now the other one is 3 1/2, so here's my half and 3. Now I can solve for each partial product, because I have 3 times 1, which gives me 3 for this block. 1/2 times 1, which equals 1/2 here. 1/2 times 3/4, which is going to give us 3/8 here. And my last block, I have 3 times 3/4, which is going to give us 9/4. So when I add them up, I have 9/4 plus 1/2 plus 3/8 plus 3. Now 9/4 is actually equal to 2 1/4 plus 1/2 plus 3/8 plus 3. Now I'm going to convert my halves to fourths by multiplying by 2. So 2 times 1 is 2, 2 times 2 is 4, so I know 2/4 is an equivalent fraction. Plus 1/4, 2 1/4, plus 3/8 plus 3. Now when I add them together, I'm going to go ahead and add my whole numbers too. 3 and 2 is 5, and 1/4 and 2/4 is equal to 3/4 plus 3/8. Now I'm going to convert my fourths to eighths by multiplying by 2, so I end up 5 6/8 plus 3/8, which equals 5 9/8. And 9/8 is actually equal to 1 1/8, so 5 plus 1 1/8 is going to equal 6 1/8 inches squared. Now, another way we could do it, if we were using fractions greater than 1, we would take 3 1/2, and we're multiplying 1 3/4. Now I'm going to convert this mixed number to a fraction greater than 1 by going 3 times 2 is 6, 1 is 7. So I have 7 seconds. And 1 times 4 is 4, and 3 is 7, so it's 7/4, which equals 49/8. Now 49/8 is equal, now 8 will go into 49 6 times, because 6 times 8 is 48, that leaves me 1 left, so 1/8. And you can see we had exactly the same. Okay, in B, when I measured B, I ended up with a length was equal to 2 1/4 inches, and my height was equal to 3/4 inches. So I'm going to label my 3/4, and I'm not going to split it up because I have no whole number. But then I have 2 1/4. So I'll put my quarter here, my 2 over here. Now I could have swapped around with 2 1/4. I just like doing it this way. So now I'm going to find the area by multiplying. I got 1/4 times 3/4, and that's going to give us 3/16. This one I've got 3/4 times 2, which equals 6/4, which equals 1 2/4. So now I have to add them together. I have 1 2/4 plus 3/16. I'm going to convert my fourths to sixteenths by multiplying by 4, so I'm at 1 8/16 plus 3/16. That's going to give me 1 11/16. Now let's try the second method. So we had 2 1/4 times 3/4, and 2 times 4 is 8, and 1 is 9, so I got 9/4 times 3/4, which equals 27/16. Now I see 16 will go into 27 one time. There's 11 left over for 11/16. And they would both be on C. My length was equal to 2 1/4 inches, and my height was equal to 2 2.25 inches. So I'm going to go ahead and set up my area problem. There's my quarter, there's my 2, there's my quarter, there's my 2. And this is 1/4 times 1/4 gives me 1/16. And here I have 1/4 times 2, which is equal to 2/4. Here I've got 2 times 1/4, which gives me 2/4. And then I have 2 times 2, which equals 4. So now we're going to add all our partial products. 1/16 plus 2/4 plus 2/4 plus 4. So we got 1/16 plus 4/4 plus 4. And 4/4 is equal to 1, so I actually have 5 1/16 inches squared. So let's go ahead and try the second strategy. 2 1/4 times 2 1/4, which 2 times 4 is 8, 1 is 9, so I got 9/4 times 9/4, which equals 81/16. So, if we look at it, 5 times 10 is 50, 5 times 6 is 30, so it's going to be 80, so I know it's 5, and we have 1/16 left over. On D, our length was equal to 1.5. Our height was equal to 2 3/4. There's my 3/4 and 2. And here I got my half, my 1. So here we have 3/4 times 1/2, which equals 3/8. Then I have 3/4 times 1, which gives us 3/4. 2 times 1/2, which equals 2/2, which is equal to 1. And here we have 2 times 1, which is equal to 2. Add them up, we got 2 plus 1 plus 3/8 plus 3/4. We end up with 3 plus 3/8 plus 3/4. I can convert fourths to eighths by multiplying by 2, so I end up with 6/8 plus 3/8 plus 3, which gives me 3 plus 9/8. And 9/8 is actually equal to 1 1/8, so our answer is 4 1/8 inches squared. Let's double check it with a second strategy. So we had 2 3/4 times 1.5. So this becomes 11/4, because 2 times 4 is 8 and 3 is 11, times 3 seconds, which equals 33/8. Now 33/8, I know 8 times 4 is 32, and there's 1/8, so it checks. On E, my length was equal to 1 3/4. My height was equal to 1/2 inch. So we're going to label our half. And here I have 3/4 and 1. So I have 1/2 times 3/4, which equals 3/8, and 1 times 1/2, which equals 1/2. So now we have 3/8 plus 1/2. I can change my halves to eighths by multiplying by 4, so I end up with 4/8 plus 3/8, and that equals 7/8 inches squared. Let's double check. 1 3/4 times 1/2, which this equals 7/4, because 1 times 4 is 4 and 3 is 7, times 1/2, which equals 7/8 inches squared. Checks. Number 3. Kelly buys a tarp to cover the area under her tent. The tent is 4 feet wide and has an area of 31 square feet. The tarp she bought is 5.5 feet by 5 3/4 feet. Can the tarp cover the area under Kelly's tent? Well, let's see. The tent, let's go ahead and draw ourselves an area model. And it says the tent was 4 feet wide. And the area was 31 feet squared. So we know area equals length times width. So the area was 31, which equals 4 times something. Well, I know that 4 will go into 31, and let's check exactly what it is. 4 can't go in at 8 times, so that'd be 32, so it's going to be 7. So that'll be 28. Subtract, and we're going to get 3. So it's 7 3/4. So we know the second dimension here is 7 3/4 feet. Now, since the tarp she bought is 5 1/3 feet by 5 3/4 feet, can the tarp cover the area under Kelly's tent? And the answer would actually be no. Okay? Because of the 4 feet right here. There, no matter which we do it, you're going to have a 1 1/3 foot or 5 3/4 feet sticking out of the end. Because here's her tarp here. Which is 5 1/3 to 5 3/4. Well, actually, it will cover everything except for the last 2 feet over here. Okay? Because 5 3/4, you can see the tarp is going to cover up to about to here. That's 5 3/4. So this 2 feet right here, that would not be covered. Okay, Shannon and Leslie want to carpet a 16.5 by 16.5 square room. They can't put carpet under an entertainment system that jets out. Now they're talking about this right here, this area. In square feet, what is the area of the space with no carpet? Well, this is where you align yourself, and we know this is 2.5 by 2.5. So if I were doing an area model, and with 2 1/2 and 2 1/2. Now 1/2 1/2 equals 1/4. 1/2 times 2 equals 1. 2 times 1/2 once again equals 1, and 2 times 2 equals 4. So I can see the total area is going to be 4 plus 1 plus 1 plus 1/4. So it's 6 1/4 feet squared. And I could check that if I wanted to. 2.5 times 2 1/2, which is 2 times 2 is 4 and 1 is 5. So that's 5 seconds times 5 seconds, which equals 25/4. And I know 4 will go into 25 6 times with 1/4 left over. Now, how many square feet of carpet will Shannon and Leslie need to buy? Well, since I found out how much is not going to be carpeted, which is 6 1/4 feet, I know that if I solve for the whole area, which is 16 1/2 times 16 1/2, and then subtract that 6 1/4 feet, I should have the carpeted area. So let's go ahead and do an area model, which is 16 1/2. 1/2 16. 1/2 times 1/2 is 1/4. 1/2 of 16 is 8. 1/2 of 16 is 8. And 16 times 16. 6 times 6 is 36. That'll be 6 will be 9. Placeholder 6 and 1. 6 15. 255. So now I have 255 plus, I know 8 and 8 is 16 plus 1/4. So when I add the 215 and 16, it's going to be 11, 7, 271 1/4 feet squared. Now let's check that out real quick. If I turn these into improper fractions, 16 times 2 is 32 and 1 is 33. So I got 33 seconds times 33 seconds, which is going to give me 33 times 33 be 99,099 be 918 1085 fourths. And since we have the 271 over here, let's try that. 271 times 4, that's going to be 428, that'd be 8, 10, 1084. So we can see it would be 271 and 1/4 left, so it does check out. But now, that is for the whole area. Now we got to subtract that 6 and 1/4 feet that is not being carpeted. So when we subtract that,